Hi there, this is Bineys. You may have heard of Power Query here and there and how it can be used probably, but in most cases, what happens is that kind of like we'll get the explanation and people will be telling us that it can be used to do A or B but sometimes real life application usage in what we do are not really shown. In the interest of that, I think I wanted to use this video as an opportunity to sort of do some Power Query workouts so that we gain some practical insights on how useful Power Query can be on the field or in our line of work. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to dwell on some data that has been generated based on some work that some people do. One of which is an exam result kind of data. And the exam result, those concerned are of the view that when the data is made available by the entity that makes it available, it's in a structure that is difficult for analysis or a bit challenging, let me put it that way. And so I said, hey, let's use this kind of opportunity to see how best we can transform that kind of data into a simple tabular form that we can utilize. Let me kind of show you how the data looks like. Okay, so in the video that I did previously on how to grab that data, I think I gave different options of how the data can be extracted, and some probably may choose to have theirs in PDF format. Some may choose to have theirs as an HTML file, or preferably, the most recommended one that will be easier to manipulate or transform is when it's on a sheet, a CSV or an Excel sheet. So let me show you the kind of data that I'm referencing. All right. So the data sort of looks like this. The result column is kind of packed like this, which will be difficult to really gain, and it's such that each subject and then the grade that the person had, so each student, their index number, gender, date of birth, then their subject, and then the grade that they got. Okay, and we can see that it's sort of delimited by a comma in there. All right, so this is the kind of web page format of that data set. Okay, then some people too may have it as a PDF. So if you choose to store it as a PDF, this is how probably the data looks like. And again, this will be difficult to handle. If you had followed what I did in the previous video, you realize that I explained how you could get it into your spreadsheet like this, and then get rid of some of the extraneous data that you could have in there, and then at least you get a clean table like this. But I'm saying clean table, but it's not entirely clean, okay, because of course, like we are saying, the result is kind of packed in there in one field, and we would like to sort of separate the various subjects and their scores or grades so that you can easily analyze it and then gain insight. Okay, let's get on with it and then see how best this can be done. For the purpose of this video, we are just going to look at how we are going to handle that of the spreadsheet. However, if you want me to do that of the PDF or that of the HTML file, I think you can comment so that we sort of look at how that one too can be done. And whilst you are at it, I would really appreciate it if you could like and then subscribe. Thanks. So let's get on with cleaning the data in Power Query. Power Query, I'm sure we are aware, exists in Microsoft Excel as well as Power BI. For the purpose of what we are doing, I'm going to work within Power BI, okay? But the procedure is not going to be so different from working with Power Query within Microsoft Excel. Okay, so what I normally like to do is declare the path to the folder that I have my files stored in, or the source files that I'm going to work with stored in, as a separate query. But it's not a required thing that has to be done. I kind of like to create a separate query like this and then write in there my folder path. By folder path, that is where the source files that are to be worked on are kept in. So this is what we do. We go to new query, we can right click here. In fact, there are so many ways to do that. So we can choose to right click here, select new query, and then choose the source. You can also come up here and the ribbon, and then you can select the new data source from here and then work on that. So these are a couple of ways this can be done. I would like to create a blank query. If you want to do the point and click, then you browse to where the folder is stored. But I already have the file path. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it directly. Go to equal to in there. So we've created a blank query. Then we go in there and then we type equal to. So equal to what? Now, the function for grabbing the source files, especially if you are working on spreadsheets, is to first get the files from the folder. So what we write is folder.files. Once you've written folder.files, you open up the parentheses. If you were to write the file path, then you could come in here, see, and then but since I have stored mine as a separate query, all that I have to do is to reference that query. So I will type my folder path and then it appears here in the IntelliSense. So if I hit enter, what is going to happen is the file stored at that location will get revealed to me within the query window. Once that has been revealed to me within the query window, I could then proceed to grab the files from this binary field, okay, the content field that contains a binary file. But then what I like to do is come here. Sometimes you may have certain files within the folder. Ideally, you should have a dedicated folder for those files where you don't put any other file like PNG files or audio files or video files or stuff like that in there. However, if it happens that you, for some reason, have other files in that folder, we would like to address that issue so that there won't be conflict. But before we put the filters in place, let's ensure that, because Power Query is a case sensitive kind of guy, let's ensure that the field that we are going to filter actually has unique kind of casing of the letters. We are going to come in here, and then we'll go to transform. I like to select lower so that at the end of the day, I ensure that all the file extensions are in lowercase. Once they are in lowercase, then I come and then filter out. But with the filter, what I'll do is I'll kind of do ends with. We want to concentrate on files that ends with, and we know that Excel files normally will end with .xlsx. So that will be the kind of file extension that we are targeting. Once that has been done, I like to come here and then convert this whole table to a list that has only the content field. So all that we'll do is to reference the content column over here. It's very simple. So at the end of the day, we get rid of all the other fields, leaving the content field as a list. Now, once it is a list, let me rename my step. I don't like steps with spaces in there. Okay, so let's move on to the next step where we convert the binary files that have been captured in each of the rows to tables. Okay, so to do that, what we'll do is, since this is a list, we are transforming each item in the list. So what we'll do is we write list.transform and then we specify that we want to transform each item of the list. So what do we want to do to each item of the list? We want to convert that to tables, or grab the tables that are in each of the binary files, because the binary file in there, sorry, if we come back here, you realize that this is a file, this is a file, right? So what we need to do, let me bring back the step. What we need to do is to go like list dot transform. We're dealing with the filtered rows. What are we doing to each of the items of that? We are doing excel dot workbook, and that is what is used to grab the tables in there, but we are working on each item of the workbook. Once we do that, then we get the tables. When we click in here, you see that you have table in each of them. However, this is not the kind of table that we are interested in. The table that we are interested in, we need to filter down for. So this is what we are going to do. You open curly braces, you put in square brackets. Now, when you look at the sample table that has been presented to us, the only thing that is trying to tell us is that for each of the binary files, we have a field called name, data, item, kind, and then hidden. Okay, these are like properties of each of the binary files. But then the real data that we want is here within the data field. But then we need to drill down to that. And for us to do that, we need to use a filter for each of them. So this is what we're going to do. We'll specify that the name, and for the Excel file, you will get a table in there and then a sheet in there. Let me open one of the Excel files so that we kind of get an understanding of what I'm talking about. All right, so what I'm trying to say is that in each of the Excel files that we are trying to work on, you would realize that I have this table in there. This is an Excel table, and so you see table design and the name of the table is what? Table 1. Now, the name of the sheet is sheet 1. If we select that we want the content on the sheet, note that the table will come together with these other stuff up here and then down here. And I think our concentration is on the table. And so the best thing to do is to grab the table. In any case, if you decide to pick the sheet, fair enough, it will work. But note that you are going to get Power Query to work unnecessarily because it now has to work on all the rows in there. And a spreadsheet has over 1 million rows. And we wouldn't want that to be a hindrance to the query. So we want to concentrate on just the table that we have in there. So for each of the tables we have in each row, we want to say that the kind should be equal to a table. Now let's test that and see. So you see that you get a record, okay? So it should be equal to a table, and then the name should be table 1. So go in there and then add that one as well. Name equal to table 1. It's not always that the name is table 1, but then it depends on how the table was named. You know, Excel tables can be named. So if you named it something else, that is what you target, okay? So once we've done that, then we need to specify which record field contains the data that we want. So this here is actually giving us this record. We are filtering down, and so we need to open another bracket outside the curly braces and then now specify that we want the data. So once you've done that, then the table gets revealed to you. This is the actual data that we are interested in. So let's call this get data tables. All right, so we have the data tables. It kind of looks okay, right? But then our interest is to get the result field separated individually so that we have each subject and then the grade that the individual had. Good. So to do that, we move on to another step. Now, remember the tables are still packed in a list. So this is a list and we have a table in each of the rows of the list. So anything that we want to do will be a list transformation at this point. So what we do is list dot transform. What kind of transformation are we trying to do? Now let's step back and then look at something. This is a table within a list, right? And each of the table has the result field in there. And we are interested in pulling out the result field so that we can pull out the various subjects and the scores or grades. So the next thing that I would like us to do is combine the tables so that we get one large table containing each of the tables that we had in the previous step. So to do that, there is this function called table dot combine, and we close it off. Once you do that, you get the tables combined, the tables from each of the files combined together as one. Now that we have the table like this, I think I'm going to rename my step combined tables. Combined tables. All right. So once we've combined the tables, I'd like us to do another step, and then this time we are not working with a list this time, unlike the previous step. Now what we have is a table, a larger table, and we wish to do something to the table, and what we want to do will be done within the result field of the table that we currently have. So before we can do any operation on it, the function that we need to use is table dot transform columns. I think that's what I'm going to use. Let's put this here. Transform columns. Yeah, so table dot transform columns. Now what kind of transformation do you intend to do? The kind of transformation that we intend to do is to break these subjects apart. Let me just move back. So we want to have each of these subjects and their scores separated so that they will be separate entities. Now they are all together as one. So when we look at the data, you realize that the commas are what separates them. And so we are going to target the commas. All right. So to perform that transformation, we open a curly braces, and then it asks us which column do you want to work on. So that's the result column that we want to work on. And then what transformation are we trying to do? Now note that the transformation must be done on each item of each row. And so what we do is to specify the each keyword to notify that we want to perform whatever we are trying to do on each of them. Now, what kind of transformation do we want to do? We want to split each item in there, okay? So for each item, we'll do a text dot split. Now, with the text dot split, in order to tell it is each item, we use the underscore. What are we splitting by? We are splitting by the comma. So table dot transform, we are transforming the combined tables that we had in the previous step. And on that table, which field are we targeting? We are targeting the results field, and each item in the results field should be split. So that is what we are trying to do. Then we'll commit. I think I forgot to put the parenthesis at the far end, so let's put that there. And then when we come, seems like something has happened. What has happened? We see instead of the results that we have here, we are now seeing list, list, list. But hey, look at the list. The list is now broken into the various subjects with their respective scores, just like we said we want. Good. But obviously this is still not usable for analysis. I mean, we can't have it packed in there like that. We need to get them out. So to do that, what we are going to do is to transform each of the lists such that we have them separated. To do that, again, let me name my step. Let me call this, say, split tables. All right, so the next thing that we are going to try to do is to further break it down, okay? Because still we have each subject and then the score attached to it. So we want to further break it down. So we have a list within a list. All right, so how are we going to do that? Again, we'll create another step. Do note that some of the steps that have been created can be packed together, but for clearer understanding code, I want you to be able to understand what each step entails. That's why I'm just going step by step and not packing them together. some advanced users decide to pack some of these steps together, right? So that you just have a few steps showing in there. So the whole structure is a table, but then within the table at a particular field, there's a list that we are trying to break down further into another list. Okay. So what we're going to do is still use the table dot transform column stuff that we used, and this time open again. We are working on the results column. What are we doing? Each what we will do list dot transform, because we are transforming each of the list within there. And what are we doing to the list? So for each list we want to do a text dot split. What are we splitting by? We are splitting each item by the delimiter. What delimiter? The dash. Let's see what's wrong. Let's zoom out a little bit. List dot transform each text dot split. Okay, so we need to put the each word here as well. Good, because we are working on each item within the list. Okay, so each item of the table, then each item of the list. So when we go in there, we see that we have lists that are packed in there. If you want to take a peek, you can just click on there, and then when we take it, you see we have each subject broken down. And so now when we go in there, we'll realize that we have list within the list. If we are to click in there and take a peek, and then each subject would have been split nicely for us from the score. At this point, we can actually put the data back together, but I would like to do one more transformation. All right, so now let's pack it together, okay? So that we kind of have the subject and then the course, right? Okay, so to do that, let's take that to another step. I could pack it in there, but then, like I promised, I want every step to be as simple as possible. So, all right, so this step, what we did was to split the subject and course. So split subjects. Then over here, we are going to recombine. All right, so with our recombine step, we are going to say this table dot transform columns. What are we doing? Again, we open the curly braces. Let me close the parentheses before I forget. And once we've opened the curly braces, again, we are working on the results field. Each item of the results field, what is going to happen to it? Let's do the table, because we already have list in there. Table dot from columns. Yeah, so let's see what happens. Good. So when we go in there, you realize that we have a various subject now transposed in there. Once we've transposed it, I think the next good thing to do is to promote the headers. Table dot promote headers. Okay. From, I think I placed it wrongly. We need to put it inside. Good. All right. So we have the headers promoted nicely for us. One last thing to do sort of is to just expand, and there you go. We have the data ready for us. However, you might want to trim each of these so that remember it had some trailing white spaces. So we'll select from here through to here the last subject, and then do a transform, do a trim on that. Okay, so that gives us some clean data there. And also it kind of specified the data types for us automatically, so I think we are good to go. So at this point, the data can be loaded to Power BI or Excel or wherever to do whatever analysis that has to be done on the data. So that is how this can be done. I guess some people might be wondering why I have left the data type as text, and that's how I want it to be anyway, because of how the data gets treated when this kind of analysis is being done. So if you wish, you could select through to the end and then change the data type to the specific data type that you wish to have. So if we like want it to be a whole number, that's fair enough. We can just select through and then come here and then select maybe a whole number, then get converted to numbers. You want it that way, fine. That one too can be done however you want it. All right, so I think that concludes it. We can apply in Excel. You won't see apply, you see close and load or load to. Okay, so once that has been done, let me rename my query result data, and if you clean up here. All right, so see you in the next video. Thank you.